Greetings and welcome to my channel. This is Sorcerer Tal. You can also find me on Facebook in the Sorcerers Guild. Today we are going to be taking the next step on the S1 project and linking the S1 sigil with its material realm counterpart, the LS or linking sigil. Okay, so in the first video of this series, I did go into a little bit about how the LS and the S1 are sister sigils, but there is actually an episode of the Ancient Wisdom Salvage Yard podcast where Ryan Lloyd and I go into great detail on the connection between these two sigils. So if you would like a very in-depth discussion on that, I'm going to be leaving a link to the Salvage Yard, to the Ancient Wisdom Salvage Yard podcast in the description portion of this post. Okay, so the S1 is a sigil is operating on the astral plane, and as I said, the LS is its sister sigil that has been operating on the material plane. Let's go over the S1 first. Of course, that is the sigil we are all most familiar with that are on this channel. It may not be the sigil you are most familiar with, but it is the one we have been discussing on this channel. So, the S1 is operating on the astral plane. On the first video of this series, I described how you could use the S1 sigil through meditation or dreams to reach up to the edge of the nothing and find space to not only create your own dream platform, but actually begin designing your own afterlife, as well as beginning to connect with the Horde. In the second video, we discussed how the S1 is going to be used to mend the tear in the rift or pierce a hole in the veil, whichever metaphor you prefer. It is the idea that we are going to correct the imbalance between the material and the astral realms that our reality is currently suffering from. And in order to do that, our next step then was to take that sigil, which we were operating with on the astral plane, and bring it closer to the material plane by marking it on our altar, perhaps fashioning our altar and our astral platform to have similar appearances so that they begin existing on both planes at the same time. And then from there, we actually began enchanting a tool with the S1 sigil. And for that, we used a dream staff, which I then had you take with you in a dream. So you were actually holding the staff and going to sleep, and then going up to the S1 sigil, having the Horde etch that sigil onto the staff, and then returning to the material plane, or waking up, of course. That's what that means, yeah. Returning to the material plane means you woke up, and then writing that same sigil, the S1 sigil, on the same place on the piece of wood, so that, or your staff, so that the staff would now exist in both places at the same time. And this granted us abilities with that staff, but it also brought the S1 sigil, or the astral plane, and the material plane one step closer together. And so now, at this step of the project, we are going to be linking the S1 sigil, which is a sigil designed to bring about the return of magic and correct the imbalance in our reality, with its material realm counterpart, which has been being used for the same purpose. And both of these sigils have been creating networks and creating a type of hyper sigil, which we are now going to, and they have been pulling towards the center. You may have seen with Ryan Lloyd's the LS, upon this mark, I unite the spheres, or the realms. I can't remember exactly at the top of my head which one it was, unfortunately. But with that, he was attempting to burrow a hole in the veil up to the astral realm. And with the S1 sigil, we're actually trying to go the opposite direction. And so now we are actually beginning to meet in the middle. Now, to be absolutely clear, I did not actually create this sigil. We're calling it either the SS or the LS1. I feel that both names are appropriate, so you can call it either one. So either way, with this sigil, we are then connecting the two together. And we wind up with a sigil like this here. And it is the outside sigil that was given to me. As I said, I am not actually the creator of this sigil. Neither is Ryan Lloyd. we had been discussing creating a uniting sigil between the two sigils when it was time, but it became time before either one of us were ready. And I actually, a few days ago, woke up with the knowledge of this sigil in my head. And it was not created by Ryan Lord nor myself. It was actually created as a joint venture by the Horde and Ellis, who is the self-awareness or actualization of the LS sigil, because it became self-aware over time and quit being, and in that state, it is not the LS, it is Ellis. And she and the Horde, working together, came up with this outside sigil, which I then added the S1 in the upper sphere to represent the astral realm, and the LS in the lower pyramid to represent the material realm. And then, of course, the swoosh, which we had on the S1, and I've discussed before, that is the idea of moving back and forth between the two realms. So, kind of an as above, below type symbol as we're reaching the point in the middle that this sigil is creating and allowing us to pierce the veil and bring about the return of magic. As if you will look closely, you will see on both of these sigils, the S1 and the Ellis, we actually already have this central symbol. In the S1, it's not completely closed up. In the LS, it was. And we have a few extra bits here, like the arrows. And I have that bit on the S1 there. But they already both have this central core of a sigil, which essentially they just kind of turned and added the swoosh to the middle to come up with this sigil here. Okay, now, I'm not sure if I mentioned or not, or yet. I'm not sure if I said this yet or not, but this is actually going to be a group project. I have already tried this a few times myself to make sure that it is safe and that it is something that is working properly. So we are now going to be taking the next step on the project, and you will be helping me unite the sigils. And this is another project which we will be doing through Dreamwork. So far, we have had a lot of interesting results with this. When you draw the sigil, you don't necessarily have to draw the S1 and the LS. Some people have found that it is stronger that way. In fact, Ryan Lloyd said that it went from, oh wow, to holy shit when I added the S1 and the LS, and he said it began to make his teeth itch. So, I mean, I guess you might experience a little bit of an itch. A few people said that adding those actually slowed down the itch. I've had a few people try this in the guild already, and that's the worst thing that's happened to anybody, was they said that it began to itch until they added the S1 and the LS to it. And other than that, we've had mostly positive results. There aren't any other practical uses to this sigil just yet, but I think we will be discovering many over time. Okay, so what I want you to do then is we're actually going to be drawing the sigil on our arm just before going to sleep. If you recall in my lucid dream videos, I discussed the idea of putting a sigil on the inside of your non-dominant wrist. So for me, that would be my left wrist here. If you're left-handed, it's going to be on the right side. But this is actually, that may be because of it may be because that's where I suggested to do the dream tattoo, but that's where I was told that I should draw this once I thought about drawing it on myself. And that's how this project has worked out, because I've already tried this. We're going to draw the sigil on the inside of our forearm just before bed, and then you will be drawn to that point where they are going to be opening. If you haven't succeeded in getting to the sigil before, don't let that bother you. If you haven't succeeded in creating your dream staff, that's okay. Just go ahead and jump right to this step. You can still go back and do those other steps. You can still meditate on the S1 sigil. You can still create your dream staff. From this point on, you might actually be creating it with this sigil. We haven't worked that out quite yet. But the fact that you have not done those yet doesn't mean that you need to do those before you do this project. In fact, preferably, you'll be doing this project tonight, after you've seen this video. The more of us that do it at the same time, the better. It doesn't mean you can only do it once, though. Anytime that you want to furnish that connection, we will be drawing the sigil on the inside of the wrist just before bed. Okay, so on the inside of your non-dominant wrist. Like so. You can fancy it up a bit if you want. I like to give it just a little bit of dramatization, like that there. Okay, and then, because you don't actually have to do this next part, if for some reason the first time you try it, the dreams aren't that intense or you aren't getting where you want, try it this way. And this is another one of the things where I would love to hear your experiences in the comments. Yeah, so tonight, or when you get the chance, draw the sigil on your wrist before bed, go to sleep. Next day, wake up. If you can, leave a comment. Tell me how it happened. Tell me what happened. Tell me how it went with you. Even if you didn't experience anything, we want to know those as well, yeah? We need feedback to know how these projects are going. So please, those of you that tried this, let me know how it went. Okay, so as I said, you can also draw the S1 and the LS. It's kind of difficult, especially if you're not a great artist like myself. You know, I can barely draw a straight line. But go ahead and put those on there. And then once you're done, either way, you draw that part, draw those two sigils, and then we'll say, upon this mark, I unite the sigils. And blow on your wrist. Just to charge it, yeah? So we draw this sigil, with or without the LS and the S1 in it. And then the statement of intent is, upon this mark, I unite the sigils. Charge with your breath, or it's actually being charged simply by being drawn on your flesh itself. And that's it. You do it right before bed, or you can even walk around for a few hours. I have drawn it on myself and walked around during the day just to see what would occur. The only thing that I have noticed so far is I seem to be kind of sensing a greater connection with the things, with those around me. Not just people, but everything. I have found if I walk around with this during the day, so there's one practical use already possibly, is that it may aid in a general feeling of connection with the world at large. And that could lead to a better form of communication and perhaps being able to read people, or even, well, I hate to just start throwing ideas out there, but suggestive of possibly beginning to develop some form of nonverbal communication, yeah, maybe even telepathy. Okay, so that's going to be it for this episode. Thank you once again for joining us. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please take the opportunity to do so now. Oh, and I'm always forgetting to ask people to hit the like button. You know, the likes do help. All right, so that'll be it for this episode. Until next time, bright blessings and an interesting fate. This has been Sorcerer Tal.